In this section of the course, I'm going to show you lots of different plugins that I think you should install. We're going to begin with one of the most common ones, which is Zencoding. And if you're not familiar with Zencoding, that gives us the ability to, rather than just typing div and hit tab, which lots of editors provide support for, you can create nested HTML. So if I want to create an unordered list with 4 list items, I could say ul li times 4, and I hit tab, and that will expand to an unordered list with 4 list items within it, and then I can incrementally hit tab to go to the next list item. It's really helpful. You can build entire site structures like a container div, and then we're going to have 3 children, one for the header, one for the main, one for the footer. And then that will instantly expand to a container div with 3 child divs for your site structure. Let's install it. Shift-Command-P, install, Zencoding. There it is, hit enter, and now it's installed. And now I believe for this plugin we need to restart. So close it out, bring it back, and now let's try it. Unordered list, list item times 4 plus tab, and now we have that. So we say home, about, portfolio, contact, hit tab again, and we're done. Let's do that site structure that we had talked about. Well, first let's add a snippet for HTML like that. Next, we're going to do container, and then a div with the class of header. Now, if you do not specify the tag name, it will automatically use a div. So if I expand that, notice what it does there. So I want a header, and to create a sibling, we use plus. So we could say main. Now, if I did not use that, and we did this, main would be a child of header. But if I do plus, and I expand it, now main is a sibling of header. So we have our header div, we have our main div, we're going to have our footer div. But I also know that I want the footer and the header backgrounds to expand. So let's do this. We're going to have the header wrapping div, and you know what? I don't want a div with the class of header, I want to use the HTML5 header element. Now I expand it, and we have these sections. So we have H1, my website, I'll hit tab, now we're within the main section, hit tab again, and now we're within the footer. And that's Zencoding. So if you've never used it before, let me take one more minute and describe the syntax. You begin by typing the element you need. Unordered list, hit tab, and you get a UL. Then you use CSS style classes and IDs. So if you want your unordered list to have an ID, you would use a pound, some ID. Hit tab, now you have a UL. If you want that to be a class, same with CSS, you would do a period. Now a quick note, your cursor needs to be at the end of the sequence. So if I hit tab here, that's not going to work. I have to place the cursor at the end and then hit it. If you want a child for the element, you use an angled bracket. So UL, LI. If you need multiple of an element, then you can use times. If we want 3 unordered lists, times 3, tab, now you have 3 Ls. If you want siblings, then you use plus, UL plus UL plus UL, which is equivalent to UL times 3. Hit tab, and now you have it. Also, if you want to assign attributes, so if I have an anchor tag with the class of button, if I also want to give that a href, and by the way, note that with anchor tags, it knows that it needs a href, so it will go ahead and add that on there. But if you want to be explicit, I could say within brackets, href equals £. Now if I run it, that will automatically be set. So if I want to create a link to Tuts Plus, I could say a href equals tutsplus.com, tab, and now we instantly have the link. But what about setting the text within tags? So I can do a list item, but what about the text here? Well, if you want to do that within your Zencoding snippet, you would add it within curly braces. So my text, and now that will expand. Now, one thing you need to remember with Zencoding is that it's space dependent. So you can't do something like this, UL, LI, that doesn't work. They all need to be right on top of each other. Don't add any spaces. So if I need to create a UL and we want to have 4 list items, we know we can do that. But what if those are links? Well, I know each of those list items need to have anchor tags. So I would say within those list items, we also want to have anchor tags. And now we get that. But then I would have to set the href for each. And if I'm just prototyping, it's possible that those anchor tags should all be set to the £. So let's add that as well. Href equals £. Now those have been set. Also though, the links don't have text. And we could do that, home, about, we can definitely do that. But if you just want to use temporary text, curly brace, some link, and now we do it, and now we've created an unordered list with lots of links. But now, what if after this unordered list, I wanted to continue on? Well, if you wanted to do that, you would want to wrap the entire section within parentheses. And while I'm thinking about it, here's a quick tip. If you want to wrap this within parentheses, of course, do it manually. Close it, Command left to go to the beginning of the line, open it at the beginning. But in Sublime, you can select a string, and if I hit opening parentheses, it knows to wrap that, like so. So if I had var name equals Jeff, and I realized, oh, I forgot to wrap that within quotes, don't do it like this. Instead, select the word, I'll hit Command D to select it, or Control D on Windows, and then I would type double quote, and that would wrap it on each side. Same with single quote, there's lots that you can do. So going back to this, now we've wrapped everything, so then we can continue on. Add a div, and now we've nested it, but we've also created siblings. So to see that in practice, we'll have our container div, and then I want to have my div with a class of header, because I want my header to stretch for the entire background. So I want to have the header element, but I also want to have a wrapping div with a class of header, and that way we can set the widths accordingly. And if you do a lot of CSS, you know what I mean. So within here, we'll say header, and then the real header element, and within here we'll have h1, my website. So if I expand that, yeah, we get what we want, but I want to continue and create the main section after it. So if I were to do this, yeah, we know that's not going to work. So that means I would need to wrap that entire section like so. And then if I expand it, there's our header, there's our main section, and then we'll do footer, then the footer. And whoops, looks like I made a mistake. Let's place the parentheses within it, not before it. There we go. And now we have the indentation like we would want. So yeah, don't worry about this too much. Clearly you could go to an extreme, but I like to do it for simple blogs like this. I rarely get too crazy with all of that nested and sibling markup. Just keep it simple.